So I have a noise in the front of this OM617 turbo diesel engine that's driving me crazy. You know, if I can't find this noise in the front section of the engine, that means it's internal, and I may just give up on this engine because I'm not prepared to take it all apart. But I would like to find out what that noise is. Let's go back to when this engine was running. Let's run this up a little bit and see how it's running. Even after the engine was just running really good on a combination of veggie and diesel, that little ticking noise did not totally go away. It was kind of a cling, 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 cling. And I even cut the belt off of the AC pump, and that eliminated a little bit of the noise, but not all of it. So I've already checked a bunch of things. I did another video and showed you some of the things you can check on the front of your older diesel engine to try to isolate what I call weird noises. So I'll put a link below in the description of this video if you haven't seen that video. But in this video, I just want to share with you what I found is the problem. And it is becoming the #1 alert. I'm going to say this is the #1 alert for OM617 turbo diesel engines. You need to check this out because I'm finding this problem more and more on these engines, and I'm hearing from our customers this is becoming quite an issue. So here I am. I've checked everything. You know, the pulleys are tight. I just finished pulling all the bolts out of this pulley section because guess what? Somebody wants to buy the pulleys and the counterbalance because obviously they lost them. Now, why would they lose them? It's because the front bolt here came out and they probably fell on the road. This happened to my daughter Kaya one time. All of a sudden she said, "Dad, all the warning lights came on. This center bolt came out and this whole pulley assembly and the counterbalance came off on the freeway." So this is a very important alert. You need to check the torque on this bolt right here. So, you know, I'm getting ready today to pull this off and send it off to a customer. And I pulled this off and guess what I found? Look at that. Can you believe this? So guess where that noise was coming from? You know, I would have never found this noise. This bolt's actually kind of rusty tight. I haven't put a wrench on it. Before I do anything, I wanted to show you what happened, how this had backed out. And these washers are just sitting down here rattling. See the noise I was hearing? And you can understand from hearing this why I was concerned about that noise. Possibly being something inside the engine related to the timing chain or whatever. But I found the problem now. I'm going to get a wrench and see just how tight this bolt is. Because a lot of times it'll start to back out, and if this bolt falls out while you're driving, this whole assembly will fall off. Usually some damage occurs to the radiator and you'll lose your belts on the road, and suddenly all your lights will come on and you'll lose your power steering. So a word to the wise, if you have one of these engines and you haven't checked this, get a wrench on this bolt and check to make sure it's not loosening up on you. So I'm as curious as you are just how loose this bolt is. You know, apparently it's been loose for a long time and it's kind of started to rust. Maybe it's rusted in place, but I'm just going to put a socket on it. Let's see if this will turn. No, it's pretty tight. It may have backed out because of some sort of, you know, working of this counterbalance here. It could have damaged the threads. So I'm going to lock this up now and we're going to put a little more force on it. Okay, then I'll just take and put a socket in here. Okay, there we go. Wow. You got to be kidding me. We've got a little bit of a problem here. I can't even budge that. That means that the threads are probably damaged. Maybe what I'll do is go ahead and soak this up with some rust penetrant and put some heat on it and see if that will allow me to remove this bolt and kind of show you what damage it did, whether or not it actually damaged the front of the crankshaft, which can happen when these loosen up and start rattling. I soaked this up for about an hour with a good rust penetrant. Now I'm going to get my impact on this and see if it'll take it off. Wow. It's not working with my 1/2 inch impact. We're going to have to maybe apply some heat to this. This is going to take some work, folks. I'm not going to give up. Man, let's use the old foot trick. All right. I squirted it again with some coil oil. Okay. Oh, man. That's going to wear an old guy out, that's for sure. All right. Let's put the impact back on it. Now I have to say I've seen these on type before, but I've never seen one like this. We probably got some damage on the threads on that crank. It is coming. See, what happened is this bolt started loosening up, and the constant, kicking of that diesel engine started damaging these threads. That obviously kept it from coming all the way out, but I bet you we've got some damage on that crankshaft. That's a big problem. And I'm looking here at these dowel pins, and it looks like somebody's done a modification. I want to show you up close what I'm looking at here. This is the end of the crankshaft. This is the counterbalance. There's supposed to be 2 round dowel pins that act as shear pins and also center this onto the end of the crank. Look, they're not round. You've got a round dowel pin, and then you've got a little additional pin that someone's made. So this has been loose before. and it's damaged the end of the crankshaft. It's damaged those slots for those round dowel pins. I think this has been epoxied on, because when this starts wearing and those dowel pins start loosening up, you'll also start to get some wear in the crankshaft itself and on the inside race of this counterbalance. So I think this whole thing previously had come loose and was working on the end of the crank, and someone fixed it this way. They drove these little extra pieces of metal in here to get this tight, and I think they probably epoxied this onto the end of the crank. Let me show you what another counterbalance looks like so you can see what I'm talking about more clearly. Here's a counterbalance off another engine. Looking on the back side, this should fit really tight on the end of the crankshaft, and you can see these two dowel pins can be removed. This is what they look like. And when you put the counterbalance on the crank, after, for instance, changing the front crank seal, you've got to be really careful when you tap this in place that you have these dowel pins lined up properly. So you can see how important it is that this not loosen up. You know, I have to tell you that, in my humble opinion, I will not fix this without removing the crankshaft and replacing it with another good crankshaft. You know, it's really too bad this had to happen. I'm sure someone would try to fix this just like this. I think you can see why I said this was epoxied on, because this bolt was like, you know, that far out, and yet this didn't come off. In most instances, that would have fallen off. So you can see an attempt was made to fix it, but it wasn't fixed right. So pay attention to this bolt, folks. That's what I'm trying to get at in this video. It has 3 concave washers, and when those compress, they're under extreme tension. This bolt needs to be torqued to about 240 foot-pounds. That's a lot of torque, and yet these still loosen up. So periodically, you might want to get a socket on the end of this and lock up the engine and make sure that this bolt right here is tight. Because if it comes loose, you can create enough damage like you see here that would require complete disassembly and rebuilding of the engine. This is something I would have to do to fix this properly, because not only is this damaged, but I'm looking in here and the threads internally here for this bolt are really wasted. So this is an alert. This is happening way too often. Don't let this bolt loosen up on your engine.